Okay.
Welcome back to another week of Let's Discuss with Meg Duke, where we discuss some things perinatal and all things mental health. This week, I have Caitlin Murray with me from Big Time Adulting. You've seen her on the TikToks. You've seen her on Instagram. She hosts Big Time Adulting podcast. And everybody, give a welcome. Hello, hello.
Hi. Oh my gosh. Thanks so much for having me. The TikTok. I love it. The
I know.
TikTok.
We were just talking off air about how I'm such a fuddy duddy about certain things, and I found it on the TikToks. It's good. No.
The TikTok is very much an anomaly to me still at this point. I go on and I creep on it, but I'm still trying to figure out like what the heck it is.
Yeah, my husband has sent me a lot of recipes on it, so I find it very useful for that. Number of good recipes have come from that for us. Yes.
I like that. I like that element of it as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. Are you familiar with RuPaul's Drag Race at all?
No, is it a
No.
show?
Okay, we're not going to go off on too much of a tangent, but I will be talking to you about it afterward. But yes, it's a show. It's a drag queen competition, and RuPaul Charles is the host. And it's just interesting because it started. This is its 15th season, so obviously 15 years ago, the landscape of social media and certainly drag was so much different. And but anyway, it's just interesting because this new season they have a bunch of TikTok drag queens, and so the queens who perform like live and in person versus the ones who record things, it's like kind of like us versus them. And I'm like, well, I'm definitely on the older side. I'm an Oregon Trail millennial, so
I'm with you. But I
yes.
wouldn't mind checking out the TikTok drag queens.
Yes. Oh, we will talk after. This is not a RuPaul's Drag Race recap watch, but yes, absolutely.
But
So
go on. Go
yeah,
on.
I will definitely send you some of those. But yeah, so anyway, well, I always like to start my conversations with people by asking how we know each other. And when I creep into some of these DMs, I answer the question for them so they don't have to be like, I don't know you. But yes, absolutely. So I obviously followed you for a while, and you were kind enough to say yes to be on the show.
Yes, really flattered to be here and to be asked. I love doing podcasts, interviews, and just going over like different topics with different people. It's what I love.
Mhm.
Chit chat.
Me too. This is one of my favorite things. I mean, obviously, I'm a therapist for a living too. So talking really does give me a nice outlet for my energy. Yeah. How did you decide to get into podcasting yourself?
I think I just like wanted to explore another medium of like a platform, basically. I started off on Instagram and just wanted to expand other ways to not just like reach people, but to reach people and dive deeper into more topics and just explore new ways of spreading messages. Like, it's nicer to be able to cover a little bit more than you can kind of tuck neatly into a reel or even like an Instagram story or something. So, and
Mhm.
sometimes I feel guilty like taking up too much like wind on Instagram, and I'm like, you know what? I should do a podcast so I can really talk about this instead of consuming minutes and minutes and minutes of a story talking about it or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, it is interesting the way we consume information. Like when you go on Instagram, you don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time, but when you obviously sit onto a podcast, you're expecting 30, 45, 60, depending on the show, minutes of. So yeah, that's a good way of thinking about that too. Yeah. Wow, I love one of my favorite things about yours is that it says get yourself a snack and have a great day.
Mhm.
That is I believe that hanger is a real emotion. I think
Mm.
my 18-month-old daughter is kind of the human embodiment of that. Like I thought I had bad hanger. This girl can put me a run for my money.
So true. I notice it big time with my 3-year-old, my youngest. And then I start feeling really guilty when I notice him getting hungry. I'm like, "Oh, fuck, I haven't fed him in a little while. He's hungry."
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh, yes, I will give you food. Okay. Yes.
Yes, snacks can't solve everything, but they can solve a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we talk about that. Like, I'm also a licensed chemical dependency counselor. And we talk about hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt. Like before you have a reaction, obviously the goal would be a response to something would be like, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Can you actually do something with one of those things before you dive into whatever the trigger might have been for something? And again, for me, I can't say it enough. Hunger is often the first one for me where I'm like, when was the last time I ate something? I need to eat something. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And you're right for the kids too, especially, man, my kids get so distracted by playing sometimes where it's like, they won't come to me and say they're hungry. I have to be the one who's like, excuse me, it's lunchtime. Can we take a pause?
Yeah, which is crazy because like I can never I'm not one of those people who ever just like forgets to eat.
No, no.
Like it's always on if I'm not eating currently, I'm wondering what I'm eating next, basically. So
That is that is the best way to describe, yes, genuinely that is me as well. Like I've talked about it on my show before. I have a diagnosed binge eating disorder. And so yes,
oh
so for me it even kind of swings the opposite way of like, have I been eating too much and what emotions am I trying to dampen as a result of that?
yeah,
Yeah.
didn't mean to trigger anything there for you.
Oh, no, no,
Like
no. I brought up snacking. We're good. It's a very safe space. But yes, absolutely. That was the way you described it though. I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's me in a nutshell. Like I just ate. When do I get to eat next?
yeah.
Yeah. So I love some of yours about people giving advice. And you were talking about how you like want to karate chop somebody. It's
Yeah.
such a that speaking of being triggered, that is a big one for me. How do you navigate kind of the advice that you get or the unsolicited advice and how does that go for you in a healthier way besides karate chopping?
Is it healthy? I don't know. Sarcasm works a lot for
Yes.
me. Um, I would say most of the people in my real life situation are pretty good about like not being, toxic in those ways or whatever. But I get a lot of it from online, like
Yes.
from people on the internet,
Mhm.
which kind of goes with the territory of having, an open page where people can follow and comment as they like, and that's fine. But it's also fun to make jokes about it. So,
Yes.
um, some of those things that like you might hear people saying on a comment section that like might immediately make your blood boil a little bit or whatever. I'm like, what that, who cares? Who is this person, right? And then
Yes.
actually a lot of those comments end up inspiring like content for me. So I think the internet trolls out there.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, that's a good point. I was going to ask you how you come up with some of your content.
Yeah. It's just the children do a great job of providing it spontaneously throughout the day, just little
Yes.
tidbits. Um, like I just right before we got on here hit post on a reel about how toddlers basically treat everybody like shit. And
Yes.
that has been inspired by my week. Like my toddler has been being such a little asshole. I don't know if this podcast is explicit or not, but you're going to have to mark it explicit now
It
after this.
it depends on the guest. I put a little E on some of them, and some of them we breeze through. And this is a very safe space for all of your fucks. Come on, bring
Okay.
them
Okay. Cool.
on.
I should have asked beforehand. I didn't mean to be rude, but anyway,
Not at all. Not at
like
all.
that's the kind of stuff that happens, or like something that'll happen with one of my kids, and I tend not to like name them or everyone. If I'm talking about a toddler, everyone knows that it's my youngest because I don't have any other toddlers right now. But
Yes.
um, he doesn't know his way out of a wet paper bag, really. Fine. He doesn't understand yet. But anyway, yeah, like so it's from real life stuff that I kind of draw from for content. Just sort
Yes.
of trying to find the humor in the things that would normally drive us crazy, or that do drive us crazy.
I think finding humor in general, if you were to look at my practice website, I talk about like I'm working along people with a sense of humor because I just think in general when we take things so seriously, it just becomes too much to really find our way through certain things. And what I really love about your page is that I feel like it gives me even more permission. And I'm not the kind of person who seeks a lot of permission. I try to live authentically and live out loud and all of those other, cliches, but it just really does like, oh, you just called your 3-year-old an asshole. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Me too. And like we're all joking about it. We're all having a kiki because at the end of the day, like, they can be so mean sometimes.
They really can be little toxic little assholes, but, it's just funny because 'cause they're, like, also just people, like,
Yes.
kids are people too, and so we all have our ups and downs and, like, good days and bad days, and I
Mhm.
tend to go through, like, massive swings of, like, phases with each one of my kids, like, sometimes, like, one of them is just on, like, a 3-week cycle of either, like, driving me crazy, like, everything they're doing is driving me crazy, and they're in,
Uh-huh.
like, a weird funk or something, or they're just being, like, awesome for a little
Yes.
while, like, and
Yes.
they tend to sort of swap roles in that, like, whoever's being one thing, the other one's being another, but
Yes. And that's tough when you have, because you have 3 kids. So
yeah.
having they kind of, you don't really get that sweet spot of, like, maybe is like 1 week where they all align in good space.
My oldest is, like, always good. He's just, like, never he's always kind of on, and I almost worry about that. He's,
Yeah.
like, too concerned with being on good behavior and doing the right thing and stuff. Um, but yeah, my middle and my youngest are truly, like, more primal creatures and, wear their hearts on their sleeve more, and what the emotion that they're showing is how they're feeling, so,
Mhm.
um
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. My 18-month-old, she's, got a tooth coming in over the weekend, so she was very snotty and very fussy and very clingy, and I was talking about it with a girlfriend, and I was like, "Oh, it's so much sometimes she just wants to, like, crawl back inside my uterus," and, like, I love that, I love a snuggle, and sometimes, like, "Could you please go sit with your dad for a minute?" And, my
Yeah.
girlfriend was like, "Yeah, but, like, think about how awful you feel when you're feeling sick, and at least we have a way to either, like, numb it with some comfort food or do something for ourselves." But, like, a year and a half old, you can't even really talk much yet to be like, "I don't feel well, leave me alone," or,
Right.
and so it's helpful for me to be able to make some sarcastic jokes, but also to be able to kind of, like you were talking about, kind of putting yourself and being like, "Okay, how are you feeling? What's going on? What's happening?"
Yeah, and I think, like, as, like, people who think deeply about all of that stuff or whatever, you understand, like, from on a very basic level that, this is what they're experiencing, and, like, they're going through something that's, like, not easy for them because they can't communicate how they're feeling about it or whatever. They don't understand how, their places in the world around them right now and that kind of thing. But that doesn't make it any easier on you who does understand those things right now, right? So it does help to just, like, or it's also completely natural, I think, just to, like, not feel 100% great about everything all the time. So,
Yes. Yeah, I think it's helpful to have that perspective, and also, yeah, it's still so hard and it's so tough, and it's
yeah.
interesting too, something you said made me think, like, it's also something to like, it kind of blows my mind still, even though I've got 2 kids and also duh, but, like, it's certain things that they're experiencing, they're literally experiencing for the first time ever. And
Yeah.
something that might feel so commonplace to us, or like, okay, you're sick, get over it. Like, you got to push through, you got to do whatever. And it's like, no, they've never felt this thing that's happening to, and it's like, okay, well, new things can be scary and tough.
Yeah. It's a lot what they're going through.
Yeah. And also, it's good that we can all make our jokes about it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Survival.
And so I was going to ask you too about kind of just in general how you've found, obviously, besides the unwarranted and sometimes laughable advice, just generally how you felt about being on social media and being a mom on social media, being a personality. Like, how has that been going for you generally?
Um, it's honestly great. Like, 99.9% of the people who are following or commenting are being positive and supportive of, like, the messaging, and they're enjoying it. And I get a lot of, like, a huge sense of fulfillment from that, from, like, having not only, like, helping validate what other moms are feeling, but validating myself in that process. Like, it's been an overall very validating experience, I would say, because you make yourself really vulnerable going on social media and putting
Yes.
shit out there for anyone to see. And particularly people that know you already. Like,
Mhm.
it's easier when it's strangers, I would say, but, like, when you're doing that with people who actually know who you are,
Yes.
and they're making like, maybe they haven't seen this side of you before, maybe it's, like, your mom's friend,
Uh-huh.
or whatever. Um, but so you just but I think if you feel like you have something real to say and, like, or a way that you want to say something, that you should do it, and I do think also that, so that's like one side of the equation for it, like just how it's affected me or how I feel about all of it. But then I also think like to the future with my children, like because they are getting older. My son is 9, my daughter is 7, and so they're starting to have an awareness about the fact that I'm on Instagram, or maybe we'll be walking down the street and somebody will stop me and say, "Hey, I follow you," or whatever. And what they even understand about what social media is right now, which isn't a lot. They're not on it.
Yeah.
But I have to be conscious of how that may or may not affect my relationship with them going forward. And it's something that I think about a lot. And I hope that I try to be like an open book with them in like an age appropriate way about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Mhm.
So I just like hope that they respect it. And I know that they think that I'm funny in real life at home and stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty real with them about what it is and what I do and say. And we'll see what happens, but I also feel like I'm trying to achieve some personal goals through this page that I've started and sort of this like brand that I'm building around a community of moms. And it's also important for me to kind of like follow my own personal goals.
Yes, I love that. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I think also too your children as they grow and understand more and are able to really internalize what's going on. It's like, hey, look, if you all decide you want to have kids in the future, I'm giving you permission as your mother to say like they don't your whole life doesn't have to be about them. You can
Right.
have your own goals, you can make jokes, you can call your kids assholes and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I love you any less and you won't love them any less if that's where you decide to go, but I think it's just a more realistic picture. I think we're really all working to move away from that Pinterest mom. And God bless Pinterest. I feel bad that they've gotten the moniker. Like they do good work, but like the Pinterest mom air quotes uh,
Yeah.
of it all, that perfectionism that we strive to achieve and feeling more comfortable in reaching out and putting our hand up and saying, "Hey, I'm not okay," or "This doesn't make sense to me," or "I need help."
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful thing that a lot of these communities are starting to establish.
Yeah, just like the ability to make yourself vulnerable in a public space, and show that there's a really cool aspect of that, and that being cool isn't all about like looking perfect or wearing the perfect thing, or saying the trendy thing or making the
Mhm.
trendy video, like you can be yourself and carve your own path, and that's part of it. That's part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that too. Carving your own path, very important for sure. Yeah, that's and how have you found about like asking for support, looking for a venting space, an empathetic ear? How has that been for you? Where have you found your most success in that? Because that's a big thing that I think a lot of people are experiencing the at least like, well, at least your kids, blah, blah, blah. I really wish people would get rid of at least as a part of our vocabulary because that's basically telling somebody to calm down, right? Like, well, calm down. At least could be worse. Or like for me, I work with a lot of people. I have my own experience with fertility struggles. I work with a lot of people with fertility struggles, and they're like, "Well, you should be grateful that you even have kids." And it's like, "Oh, so I'm just supposed to be 100% happy and grateful 100% of the time."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, I would say in terms of like a person that I lean on or people that I lean on, my mom has always been that like my number one probably go-to person to call when I need to vent, or if I'm worried about something, or I want to bounce something off of them, of someone. And she's a fantastic listener. And so, um, I think that's one of the things like that when we're talking about like wanting to vent about our kids or any of that stuff. so much of it is just like, in going back to what you were asking about before about unsolicited advice and stuff, people are sometimes genuinely trying to help by offering advice, but what a
Yes.
lot of people want is just like an ear, like an empathetic ear,
Mhm.
and somebody to say you're right, like to feel that way, or like that makes sense why you would feel that way. I'm sorry that like you're going through this. I love
Mhm.
you, blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
Um, or, maybe you do want some advice sometimes, and that's fine too. Like if you need somebody to ask somebody for some help or whatever. I also have a really great group of mom friends that I definitely rely on heavily, and who I feel I have like a wonderfully authentic, real relationship with. And we're not competitive, we're not petty. It's just good friendship.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah. That validation is so it's just so necessary. Sometimes it's even just like my kids won't my current struggle, if you don't mind me sharing, my kids will not behave at restaurants. They just my daughter was born in the pandemic. My son was 7 months old when it started. We moved to Kansas City in March of 2020, so we don't know anybody here, so we don't go, we don't do. And so when we do now do things, it's like all the other people have their children just sitting nicely and eating their meals, and my kids want to get up and run around. And I love my children's wild and curious personalities.
Mhm.
And also sometimes it would be nice to be able to go out and not feel judged by other people.
I know. I mean, I think that like anytime where I feel the same way, when anytime you go out in public with your kids,
Mhm.
I automatically feel defensive. Like people are like looking and judging. And I don't
Yes.
know what that is. Like, because I know my kids are good kids and I love them. And
Mhm.
who else? Like, why would I give a shit what some stranger thinks, really?
Uh-huh. Mhm.
They don't know me from a hole in the wall. And
Right.
I've gotten better about that since I've gotten older and like my kids have aged more and stuff. I think like I've just become more confident in myself as a mom, maybe that way, but I still do it.
Mhm.
Um, but how old are your kids?
1.5 and almost 3.5.
Yeah. So like I don't honestly really know very many 1.5 and 3-year-old kids who don't act like assholes out at a restaurant. So
Oh, see, and this is the validation that I need, right? Like, oh, okay, so it's not just me. Because I have some
yeah.
friends whose kids are just like chilling. And they're like, oh, I'll get up and
I,
move around a little bit. I'll come back and I'm like, ah.
there's been like a period of time, I feel like almost all of last year, but between ages like 2 and 3 with my little guy, like we wouldn't even really bother going to a restaurant with him because it would just be such a pain in the ass. Like,
Mhm.
I don't feel like getting up 700 times to like walk around the restaurant with you to look at shit so that you can sit down when the food comes or whatever. It's like, why you can do this at home.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, and we get these lofty aspirations of like, we're going to go out and we're going to try this new restaurant. It's supposed to be really fun and just delicious. And then it's like, we'll be sitting there and be like, are you having a good time? No. Are you having a good time? Absolutely not. This is nightmare.
Yeah.
This is terrible. We're not doing this again. And then we wait for months again to
Yeah.
try. But it's nice to have that validation from other parents, especially parents who have kids who are older, be like, oh no, my kid never did that. My kid wouldn't sit still. You're not a bad mom. And it's like, you're not a bad mom, but also
I'm
it's
also not afraid to
anybody's.
throw a screen in front of my children at a restaurant so that I can sit there and like sip my glass of wine and have one conversation with my husband,
Yes.
like instead of us like being circus directors, like, you know,
Yes. Genuinely. Genuinely
yeah.
feels like that sometimes. Absolutely. Yeah, but I think that's what's so nice about it is just having that validation and being able to like understand that perfectionism is, it's a source of shame and or it's as a result of shame, I guess I should say. And, we can't expect to be perfect parents, but being able to get that validation from other people can just be so nice, which is again, I keep coming back to why I love your Instagram feed so much because I'd be like, yes, yes, thank you. Yeah. So I remember not too long ago you did a post about cutting back your toddler's school hours to keep them at home with you. And I was just would love to kind of hear more about the thoughts that went into that and the consideration and kind of the motivation behind it.
God. Well, I can tell you that with every inch of my soul, I can't wait until he is full time in school, to be honest. Like, it will be a wonderful day for me when I send that kid off to a full day of school. And because there's so much that, like, you only have so I mean, maybe other people have more gas in their tank and stuff like that, but I don't know, like, there's only so much gas I have in my tank to entertain um a small child for the entire day, right? But
Mhm.
this is my last kid, and it's kind of the last year where I could have him. And he still
Mhm.
goes to school every morning.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's never there. It's just he was supposed to go some full days, and I pulled back on the full days because I was like, you know what, I want this like last I want to really make sure that I'm fucking done with this when
Yes.
um so and I will be. Like, I know I'll be, like, happier, I will be more organized, and I will probably be a better mom in the times that I'm, like, with all of my kids when I have that extra space from him. But for now, it's just he's only 3.5. Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna be 4 this year, so, in May, and he's still pretty little. So it's not like, I decided to homeschool him at kindergarten, but
Yeah.
I was going to kind of focus a little bit more on some of the stuff that I'm doing, more writing and that kind of thing. And basically, my choice was just to say, I'll table that a little bit more for like this last year, uh,
Yeah.
sort of see through this role of stay at home mom that I kind of committed myself to, and
Mhm.
just see it through.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I spent like the whole afternoon with Lukey today. I have a babysitter right now though. I've got to do some pickups and drop offs later, and it's easier not to have to cart everyone around while you're doing
Yes.
so. It's not like I never have breaks. It's just we spend a little more time together than I had originally planned for this year, and by choice. So
Yeah.
it's it's great. You know what? It's time that you don't get back. So
Yeah. And that's really lovely.
also, if you don't do that, also fucking wonderful for you. Like,
Yes.
just also be very happy with that decision too, because it's not a walk in the park. It's more like I'm honestly like kind of white knuckling it. So
Yeah. And I think that's a nice thing. Some people just really are just meant for motherhood. They have babies and they don't want to work outside the home. They just want to be around babies and children all day long. And I'm like, No, thank you."
yeah, it's boring. And like, it's not necessarily like, I don't even like to think of it like that, like you're not meant for motherhood or I'm not meant for motherhood in that way. But this phase, particularly of motherhood, like, I think
Yes.
that like my skill set lends itself better to an older child. I don't
Yeah.
like unnecessary play. I don't like, I'm not particularly patient, and like, it takes an insane amount of patience to deal with babies and toddlers. I like to be on the go a little bit more. I like to be moving, and nap times, meal schedules, all of that really inhibit those things. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to sit around and be like a house prisoner like all day. I feel really trapped in those situations.
Yeah.
Now, with my 9 and 7-year-old, it's like this amazing, amazing time of life that I'm starting to experience with them,
Mm.
like, just to enjoy activities alongside of each other instead of just being the facilitator of everything all the time, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my son started his second season of soccer this past weekend and he was real hit and miss in the last season, but his last game he was in it, he was playing, he was so excited. He got a medal at the end. He got to hug the big Puma mascot, like very not like Puma the company, but I don't know. Anyway, Johnson County Puma kickers, whatever, I don't know. He was so excited. So I was like, "Great, we're going to do it again." Cuz he ended on such a high note. He sat in my lap for 45 minutes. I'm scared. I don't want to. And of course, I congratulated him on being so brave as to let me know that he was scared and but like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to the time where they're like a 7-year-old, hopefully, would be like, I would like to participate in the swim team, and like they can go and be on the swim team and I will sit and watch them swim, and like
Yeah.
it won't have to be like, okay, please go play. Will you go do that? Like I totally
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, like I extract an incredible amount of joy from watching my kids do activities independently. Like, it's not
Yes.
like I don't wanna be there. I don't It's not like I don't wanna be with them. I love being there watching them do that stuff. I just also love not having to be, like, the
Yes.
teacher, the coach, the caretaker all the time. Like, I love their independence. It's
Yes.
fantastic,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I gotta admit, now that you've said that, I derive a great deal of joy even when my year and a half old is like, oh, she's just sitting and playing. Like,
Yeah,
that isn't that beautiful? All by yourself. Good for you. You play with that puzzle or whatever it is. I'm like, good for you. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So that I like that too. That's a good way of looking at it. Cause I always kind of thought about like, I'm not meant like motherhood material, but like it's just not my strong suit in certain ages. But then there are other things that can be things to look forward to, and maybe my strong suit might come another one. I read a quote about that today, a post about like, I'm not the mom who plays fairy tale. I'm not going to chase you like a monster, but I will do these things and feel really strong about that. And it's like, yeah, we all have our strengths where they may be.
yeah, totally. I mean, some people have a really hard time, like, breaking down walls and starting real conversations or getting, deeper into uncomfortable topics that kids bring up all the time. And I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Let's talk about that shit. Sit
Yeah.
down. Yeah, pull up a seat, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like one day be saying hindsight's 2020 on all of this, but I think that I feel like I'm coming into my own much more as a mother now that my kids are getting a little bit more mature and independent. I know
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of hard stuff ahead, but
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
that's part of
Uh,
being a parent. It's like you rise to the occasion, you rise to the challenge. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is that stressor of like, I couldn't agree with you more. Like I love the idea of both of my kids being in public school so I can save $2,500 a month and get my PhD and have, them be taken care of and be learning. And also too that yeah, there's just all of those little firsts that keep slipping by. And
mhm.
so yeah, it's just the beautiful pain of being a parent in general. It all everything sucks. No, not everything, but like
Everything's like also the best at the same time. But yeah,
exactly, right? It's like you're so excited for these things to happen, but like I remember when my daughter started walking for the first time and I was so excited because she was so proud of herself. And then I was like, I'm never gonna have a baby's first step again. Like
and also now I have to like shadow her every move for the next year so that she doesn't like fall down the stairs or
yes. When
yeah.
we took away, we have two sets of stairs and we had a baby gate at the top and bottom of each, and we took away two of those baby gates. I felt a physical freedom in my own home of like,
Yeah.
oh, I can freely function. We still have them on certain parts of it, but yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big
So
big deal there. And then there's one post. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. For those who are listening, we were supposed to meet back in November. And I got the flu. I woke up that morning and was like,
yeah,
I have the flu.
yeah.
So you were kind enough to reschedule, but it was still a while back. It was back from June that you did a post where you talked about the rage unique to motherhood. And I was like, yeah, again, like that physical response to certain things where like you can't have a conversation with somebody, you don't get to finish a warm meal, people aren't listening. I have to pee, but you have to pee. So you're gonna pee and I'm gonna have to hold it. Like just
Yeah.
all of those things that happen and like the physical anger response that comes from that. I was like, yes, I feel so seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a definite real thing that I don't think is something that people realize at all that's going to come as a secondary feeling to becoming a mother, right? Or becoming a parent. Um, but it's that constantly putting your needs to the side for somebody else and also not getting anything back in return most of the time when your kids are really little too.
Mhm.
Um, so some and just the absolute fucking backbreaking frustration of the little everyday today happenings, like trying to get a toddler out the door. Like it
Yes.
is the bane of my existence basically every day when I have to get my toddler up to
Yeah.
go pick up my big kids at school. And
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Oh my god, you make this so painful every day. You don't
Yes.
wanna get your shoes on, you wanna." And it's just how much patience can you have every single day, right? Like maybe some day is actually also a bad day on top of the normal like bullshit that you're dealing with toddler. And you just feel like you're going to absolutely lose it, right? But you feel guilty at the same time because they're these innocent like little creatures that um you don't know any better, even though it does sometimes seem like they know exactly what they're
It
fucking.
it very much feels like they know what's happening sometimes. They even
Yeah.
make faces sometimes where they're like, I know I'm not supposed to be over here. I see you
Right.
seeing me."
Yeah, testing, testing, testing all the time.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's, like, totally normal to get, like, that super angry feeling, I think, ragey, because it's fucking crazy town. It's bonkers raising little kids. Little kids are insane.
Yes.
Like, toddlers are crazy. Like,
Yes.
it's a fact.
Yes, they're like I heard a quote way before I had children, and I was like, "That probably I think I was in college even, it was like, "Toddlers are like mini drunk humans," and I'm like, "That
Yes.
probably sounds about right."
Yeah. Scream at you in the middle of the night, throwing food.
Yes, mad at you for no reason. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, I just appreciate everything. Like I said, I think this validation is what I hope people come to my page for, to listen to this show for, to feel encouraged and motivated in whatever ways they can feel. And I'd love to have you on so that you can share that. Cause I honestly, even I am like, yes, let's go. Let's go be a mom today. So, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat. And again, thank you for all of the stuff that you've put out there for everybody. Where can everybody find you?
Oh, yes, I am mostly on Instagram. Big Time Adulting is my handle, all one word. And I am on TikTok, but it's really just a repeat of my Instagram stuff. So
Yeah.
if you're only on TikTok, you can find me there too, same handle.
Mhm.
And my podcast is called Big Time Adulting. So I didn't branch too far away from that.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm sure marketing and branding people would appreciate the ease of access to finding you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. Everyone, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with Caitlin and me today. Be curious, not judgmental. Goodbye.